Hello and welcome to Teaching My Cat to Read, the very serious book review podcast. I'm Eli.
I'm Em.
And I'm Ro.
And this week, because we don't have Lottie, this week we are continuing to talk about Harrow the Ninth because it's so good we couldn't get through it all in one episode. Jingle, 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 jingle. There's so much going on in this book. Like I said before we recorded last time that we weren't going to get through it in one. So this book joins the ranks of we had to do 2 episodes on it. Books, which is what, Temeraire and The Hobbit?
The Hobbit, we planned it.
Is that the only 2?
We knew we were going to do that for The Hobbit.
Yeah.
At the top of the episode, I would like to apologise. I have an apology to make to our viewers and to Harrow, which is that I called her feral in the last episode, and I was wrong. That was an incorrect thing to say, and I owe her a deep apology. Because one of the very first things she tells us about herself is that, like, she prides herself on bloody-minded composure, and, like, she does maintain that. She is not actually feral in any way throughout this book. I just couldn't resist the image of her sitting on a counter in the dark eating crackers. But she's actually...
I feel like there's a sort of dissonant serenity, right, going on, where on the inside, it's like her head is full of bees. But yeah, on the outside, she's got the bloody-minded composure. Yeah.
And I also think there's a kind of like... She's very good at holding what feels like from the inside quite an even keel, despite, she might have blood pouring out of her nose. She might be covered in vomit. She might have just had to roll onto the 6-foot sword in order to stick it to herself with bones before she can stand up. But, like, she is taking it all so seriously and refusing to acknowledge that this, like, undermines her dignity in any way. So we as the readers kind of just have to take it that way as well, I think. Mm-hmm. You do just feel like, yeah, honestly, she's doing good. Reverend daughter represent. Like, yeah. But yes, I thought I needed to get that off my chest before we...
Yes, I think there is the issue of being inside Harrow's head and seeing everything that objectively is terrible and should make you go feral. And seeing her thought processes, which are objectively... ridiculous, and tying herself in knots that she does not need to tie herself into, and it leads you very much into imagining that that kind of feral energy. But no, yes,
instead
right.
It just cancels out and she's just normal.
She's just like a spooky tiny nun. She's a tiny spooky nun doing tiny spooky nun shit and being inscrutable to all around her.
You're gonna hate me. I saw a fan art, like a really basic fan art of Harrow and Gideon. It was like they're both triangles to me. And like Gideon was like a little triangle top, and then Harrow was just like a little like normal way up triangle of black clothing. So yeah, go find that really small doodle fan art that I found and add it to the Tumblr post. Then that's your task.
I'll do my best. Set me on a difficult internet sleuthing task, and I'll.
That is like I have seen fan art, which is Gideon is Johnny Bravo. I'm so sure I've seen that. Which is that's what Triangle Gideon is putting me in mind of.
Yes.
Yeah. The one I keep seeing that I love is like tiny cartoon Harrowhawk who's like mostly eyes. And then, like, very tall Gideon and Yanthi kind of looking down at her, being like, oh, isn't she adorable? And then she drops, like, a bone, like, anvil on them. And I love that.
That's delightful.
That is perfect. Like, no notes, 100%.
Oh,
that's
I mean,
the
I
dynamic.
reblogged the that comic of Let's Dance Trident Terriers.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Which was just beautiful.
I'm going to pull your whole ass off.
Yeah, you want a bone ass? You want Harrow to grow you a bone ass after I pull your ass off? She's not even into you, she's into the bones. And Yanthi's like, one of the aspects I possess that you now tragically lack. She's the worst. I love her
so much.
She is so awful.
I've got to say, that was a thing on a reread that I was like, I didn't get the hype around Yanthi for quite a while, but on this reread, she's awful and I love her. Like,
I think because on my first reread, you're trying to figure her out like Harrow, and then once you finally know that the great betrayal is coming at the end, and that's always going to be where she's going. I don't know. It's you can just let her enjoy the. What was it that someone the Draco in leather pants fight.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, because I think Tamsyn Muir has said that that's explicitly
there's some word of God on
the
that
concept.
isn't
For
there?
the characters. Yeah.
And also just the
Crucially not word of God.
Because which we do not trust as far as we could throw him, or indeed Harrow, who is much smaller. But yeah, I mean, I had a thought about that and then it went away. Imagine having thoughts and then they stay in your head long enough.
Something about Yanthy and being Draco in leather pants, or
oh
word
yes,
of God,
the fact that she says that she claims she wanted to be a lictor for posters of her face, which is just so gloriously terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I also, two things really struck me this time that kind of made me go, okay, she's awful and I love her in a, she's awful and I love her way. But I'm like, oh, here is a three-dimensional character who's quite interesting to me. And one of them was the fact that she is immediately we should evacuate the houses when God dies. Aren't you even going to try? Which, striking. And it feels in complete contrast to almost everything we know about her. I mean, excluding she doesn't know where Corona is, as we mentioned last time. But also so there's a moment fairly early on when they're talking about Harrow having sleepwalked into stabbing Kithraea's body, and Yanthy walking up to seeing this and saying, "Wish you'd taken off her arms." Because there's something about that that's just so she doesn't pity Harrow, she doesn't dismiss her. She's just she's just kind of on board, She's yeah, sure, why not? Wish you'd taken her arms off. I hate that bitch too. Dismember her corpse. But it just reminded me sometimes, I feel sometimes when you've got any kind of mental illness and you've had a bad time or somebody's witnessed you having a bad time, sometimes the last thing you want is people to be oh no, you poor dear, let me help. Sometimes you do just want somebody to say, wish you'd taken her damn arms off.
That's it. That's exactly how I am when I'm having a bad time. I was discussing this with a friend recently because they'd had a bit of a bad time and they messaged me, and I sort of projecting didn't sort of check in regularly because I was when I am like that, I'm like a cat. I don't want anyone to see me. I don't want the pity and the caring and the everything. I just want people to treat me like it's another day.
Yeah. Because sometimes it is, right? Sometimes it is just another day, and you don't need people being this is a special big deal that I'm gonna what's it about? You're just
about,
this is just my life.
Yeah, let me fucking deal with it,
Yeah,
that's interesting because in this, Harrow is surrounded by people who are underestimating her, and it's not that Yanthy doesn't underestimate her a bit, but she doesn't pity her in the way the rest of them do.
Yes.
That's kind of the difference. She still kind of thinks that Harrow's a sort of a failed
She's just
victor.
damn bitch, we all got problems,
But
Yeah.
And I think it stands in particular contrast to, because one of the things that was making me think about this was I was thinking about God, as you do. But just one of the things that because I think that was another one that I think really hit me this reread over Yanthy was the over previous rereads. Again, sentences. Was that I didn't like him, but I hadn't really dug deep into the why. And it hadn't, I'd seen a lot of stuff online about, kind of people hating on God. And I was kind of listen, I'm on board with everybody who wants to try and kill God. I totally get it. But I hadn't kind of fully understood it in a visceral way. And I think reading it this time, I very much got the how dismissive he is of Harrow and how selfish he is, how much he just doesn't care. And it's it's very much towards women as well. It's that first seventh adept that's pouring her life out into that blood ward. She clearly does not want to survive that, and she is obviously, even to Harrow's eyes, upset that God has brought her back, but he doesn't care. He is not interested at all. And Kithraea couldn't possibly have had a rational reason for wanting to kill him. It had to be a cry for help or a crime of passion.
She couldn't have possibly have known her own mind.
Yeah, absolutely. She couldn't. There couldn't possibly have been a rational reason to want to kill the guy who's wandering around with a crown made of baby finger bones. Where did that come from? Crazy bitches, am I right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Like-
I might need to reread. The impression I've always got is that he is very equal opportunities in his dismissiveness.
Okay.
And that to the extent that maybe is, and to be honest, I'm like, I don't want to go too far defending this because like,
Yeah.
Jod is a misogynist is not like a thing I'm actually against as a principle. I think yes.
Yeah.
I just think maybe his like dismissiveness of anyone else's agency like is stronger than that. There's probably a level of misogyny on top of it.
Yeah.
But
No,
'cause,
I
like,
think that's fair
the
to
two
say.
other the two male characters we have interacting with this are like Gideon and Augustine, right? And they are goddamn lapdogs, right?
Yes.
They are.
Yeah.
They are not going against him. Like they do not. I don't think there's any point where they really push back against him in the way that like Mercy does in
Yeah.
this. I mean, particularly like.
Apart from, Dias Aparte Major, right? Like, Augustine was in on the whole, let's
Yeah.
make
Oh,
Xavier
yeah.
baby
Augustine
thing.
does it behind his back, right? But he doesn't do it to his face until right at the very last moment, right? And you
Yes.
very much get the surprise from Jod about
But
that.
then Mercy
right?
doesn't, like, she criticizes God all the time.
Yes.
But she doesn't, like, defy him, I think, until that moment as well. So that's...
Yeah, and that's why he puts up with her. But I think she has like she criticizes him enough that you get to see him having to be dismissive of her and having
That's
to
a
put
good
her
point.
down.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas Augustine is smarmy as heck, and Gideon is just like silent guard dog vibes the whole time.
Yeah, no, that's
Yes.
true. It's not a representative sample necessarily, is it? Yeah. But yeah, I think it
You
particularly
do get, like, the way that he speaks about women, like, the way that he
Oh,
speaks
yes,
about
yeah,
Pyrrha,
yeah.
for example.
Yeah.
Like, it's sleazy.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
No, for sure. And I think it particularly struck me with Mercy because of the conversation with Augustine where he's like, you have made yourself unlovable. And that's like, I could kill you right now. And God would
Yes.
say, well, I'm disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. We'll say no more. Like, don't do it again. We'll say no more about it. But if you tried to kill me, you'd be,
You'd be cut off, yeah.
yeah, that would be it. Which I think is a very
yeah.
interesting, like, I mean, somebody else pointed this out on Tumblr, but the reversal where, God kills Mercy.
Yeah.
And he says to Augustine, like, is this,
Will you forgive me?
will you forgive me? And that's actually his line, which I really
Yeah.
like. I think that being the thing that makes him kind of crack the affable, I mean, I'm one of the boys in God's little special clubhouse vibe is you killed Mercy and that's it. That's it. The whole I'm taking this whole Mithraeum into the river. You can't goddamn stop me.
Do you see why I love Augustine though?
Yeah, like that was the moment I was sort of like, okay, I kind of see why you're in this book. Actually,
It's like the tiniest, littlest heart of gold you could possibly have, just right deep in.
Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to find out what happens to the people that get eaten by the stomata. Right?
Yeah.
Is Augustine gone?
We've got to find something, even if it means they don't come back, right?
Well, yeah, they haven't come back into, like, I don't mean are those things going to come back? I guess I'm wondering if in Electo we as the audience get to see what's beyond there.
But then we've got two beyonds, haven't we? Because I don't imagine that whatever's beyond the stoma is what Abigail is talking about when she talks about the river beyond. So
because what's beyond the stoma is like hell, right? Or at least that's what that's
kind of the implication
they've been saying. Yeah.
Which I guess kind of makes does that make the river like the plains of Asphodel? Is it a kind of a neutral middle? It's the grey place.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I feel like we're going to find something out about them if that actually. If that means anyone who's gone through the stone will actually come back in any way, I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be that like we find something out, but they're still kind of functionally dead for the narrative. But it does feel like there's a big sort of hovering question mark. What even actually is this? That so far this series has always been very good about filling in like as it goes. So
that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking this is a sort of big unfilled in thing that might get filled in.
Yeah. Although this is thinking about people coming back. For all that people do seem to come back from the dead quite a lot, I feel like one of the major themes of this book is that you can't go back, if you see what I mean. So, like, Gideon, technically her soul is still kicking around in the back of Harrow's head, but she's also, like, she's not got her body back. She's not alive in a meaningful way. She's changed forever, and so is, so is Pal, and, like, even people who've come back from, like, Death's Door
and stuff,
have, you can't, I'm thinking about Judith in As Yet Unsent as well, like, that's you can't go back. You are forever altered by whatever this experience is. So in that sense, I'd be very surprised if people came back from the martyr in, like, a meaningful way. But I don't know, it could happen.
Or at least not, they were sort of some sort of revenant, or, But yeah, and that's to me is a very, like, trauma, it's sort of informed, like, very, very true to, like, something like that happens to you, you can't go back.
Yeah.
It will affect you.
And it is, like, I think narratively, I think it's difficult to bring, particularly Augustine back without undermining the sort of ending of this book in some way. So, I'm looking forward to seeing what the answer is here. That's my main takeaway.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think Gideon coming back would undermine a lot of, like, what we see from Pyrrha in Nona. So there's
Gideon original flavour, we're saying here.
Yes. The thing is, you cannot pronounce G1dian the way you can on the internet, which is how I'd normally... if we just call him the Saint of Duty.
Gideon Prime.
Or,
the Saint of Duty, I think.
Or Gideon the First, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was another thing that was fun on this reread, actually, because I knew Pyrrha this time. So as soon as, the Saint of Duty's eyes change when Harrow pulls him out of the furnace, I felt safe immediately. I was like, oh, Pyrrha's here. Everything's going to be all right. Which is such a powerful influence from Nona. I genuinely, like, I settled back in my chair. I'm like, oh, thank fuck, Pyrrha's here. Everything's going to be okay.
And then she spends at the end of this book going, I have no idea what's happening and we're all going to die, which is... It's very funny in retrospect once you've read Nona, but also makes complete sense. Like, she's been stuck in the back of Gideon, the original's head for, like,
10,000 years.
Yeah.
Give or take some breaks to fuck his girlfriend.
Yeah. Technically, I think he was fucking her girlfriend, but that's...
yeah, that's true.
Which I want to slightly circle back to the thing that Em said earlier, the first thing about Ianthe, about the houses. And so I read that as very much Ianthe and Harrow have grown up, their whole world is the Nine Houses, because they are growing up to some extent in a cult where it's like, this is the whole world, and like, oh yeah, there are other planets and stuff, but they don't matter. The houses are the world, and everyone that you care about and everything that you think of as civilization is in these, like, 9 planets. And so I think for them, the idea of the 9 houses being destroyed is very different to Jod and the Lictors, who are like, well, our actual world, well, Jod's like, the original world we came from has been destroyed, and we built this up, and we kind of, it's a nice little sort of playing God, sort of having all these people.
It's not real to them in the same way.
Yeah, it's a playground almost. It's a theme park. It's a necromancy theme park.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't. So that kind of feels like the difference, and why Ianthe has that, and it feels very almost out of character because she pretends to be like the other lictors so much, but she just fundamentally isn't. She is connected to the actual people and the actual society in a way that they aren't, because they just run away all the time.
And I think it's maybe hard to pick that up because you're quite used to Harrow, and for Harrow has this abiding sense of duty and responsibility. And we think of Gideon as being kind of a moral centre as well. So for either of them to be like, obviously we have to evacuate the 9 houses, you've got immediately clear cut, even though, like, Gideon hates the Ninth, but it's still, you don't question that at all. But you're right, like, thinking about it in terms of, like, that's Ianthe's whole world. Not just that she doesn't know where Corona is, but you're right, it does make
if she
more
wants
sense.
to have the face up on the poster, the people that she's imagining looking at the poster in awe are the ones down on those planets.
That's a very good point. That is a very good point, yeah.
Not to say that she doesn't have some good in her, but it could also be slightly selfish.
Yeah, for sure. That has actually brought up a thought for me. I was thinking about the Mercy Morn killing God in this context and giving up on the idea of evacuating the houses. And I wonder if there's not a thematic thing about giving up. Because the thing about the lictors is they can't ever give up, right? They can't die. They can't... And, like, Kithareya, like, suicide bombing on the first house is also, in a way, she's given up. She doesn't have there's no way out of the situation that she's in, right? There's no way out of being a lictor. There's no way out of being eaten alive by cancer for 10,000 years. And Mercy has kind of finally hit that point of, like, we're never going to get it perfect.
This is the next forever.
We're never gonna beat God well enough that we could both end him and end necromancy and save everybody in the houses. Yeah. So she says it herself, she sees an opportunity and she takes it. And I wonder in some ways if that is partially why it, like, from a narrative sense, it's not successful, right? Because it's not
it's despair.
Yes. It's not
the Tolkien thing of, like, you cannot despair. You will lose.
Yeah. And if I was thinking about this because, partially, I wonder if Mercy and Augustine had actually, like, coordinated the pulling the Mithraeum into the river and blowing God up, I think it would have worked.
He wouldn't have been able to reconstitute himself.
Yeah,
possibly,
I suspect he wouldn't have been able to, or we would have got Electo coming back in his body, which would be a very different problem, but it certainly wouldn't have resulted in Mercy getting atomized.
Yeah.
Well, not in the same way, at least.
Yeah, okay, possibly, yeah. Maybe the man-eating magma fish might have gotten her eventually, but...
Yeah.
Tasty thoughts. I enjoyed the, for anybody else, the man-eating magma fish would have, like, that would have been, the last straw for Harrow. But the fact of his divinity earned God about 60 more seconds. It's so good. Yeah. It's so good.
Okay. Speaking of the river, so I'm trying to get my head around something. So necromancy works in the river, or necromancy doesn't work in the river?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because I think there is a difference in the rules between when you are, like, it's just your soul in the river versus when your body and soul are both in the river. But I don't actually know what the difference is. And the main thing I remember about it is because there's another classic Mercy-God exchange when they first travel through the river and they're all physically in it. And Harrow starts doing necromancy. Yanthi is gibbering on the floor, and Harrow's like, yeah, I'll do necromancy, why not? And God's like, Harrow, stop using theorems. And Mercy's like, she's an infant, she can't be using theorems, that would be ridiculous. John, stop her, she's using theorems!
Yeah, it's such a good line. Okay, so at that point they're physically in the river, and then I guess Augustine also physically pulls them into the river.
Yeah,
but when they go to fight the beasts, they're going...
It's just their souls, because the calves left behind to fight the heralds, right?
So that's why they are literally... That's why Jod and Augustine are literally just, like, having a scrap and pulling each other's hair as they, like, fall into the...
that would
fully, like, siblings fighting.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. That's particularly funny when we have also, like, seen them all... Not God, but, like, we've seen Augustine and Gideon, for example, dueling... And like it's been a whole thing where they're like, they're using the swords and they're very elegant and it's a dance and all of this. And then it's just like, we are at the hair pulling stage now. Nothing to be done about it.
I'm not sure that's literally in there, but I'm like, that is the vibe. So.
That is so the vibe though, yes.
Like undignified grappling.
The other thing that I thought about with the river this time was they talk about how you can't do wards in blood or bone on the riverbank, but you can
so you need to like use the wood.
Yeah, there's driftwood. There's plants growing on the bank of the river. Why is there? And I'm wondering if that's all debris from Earth dying. Yeah, did I have any more river thoughts? I don't think I had any more river thoughts. Anybody else thinking river thoughts up in here?
I think what we touched on last week was the Abigail describing the river as like a play, like the bubble.
Oh, yes, play stuff.
Yeah.
You've brought us all to play these characters in the reconstruction, the alternate history of Canaan House.
Which I want to. How much do you think? How much? So this is the thing that does confuse me. Yeah.
Same. Same.
But Harrow rewrites her memories, and then Harrow pulls all the ghosts into this fake version of Canaan House that she's got. How much are those the same? Like, when she's remembering this false version, but this false version is influenced by who she was able to pull, not just the fact that she's removed Gideon.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like,
so like, she has to completely obliterate Cam and Pal, basically. Like, they don't even have faces in
but why is that? Is that a function of the fact that she can't get their ghosts?
Not available to her, but also I think they don't get to be players. Even like their faces aren't even allowed in there because.
Well, I think they're a special case in that I think one of the things I noticed on this reread that I don't think I'd picked up before was that she can't remember them either. So whatever they are so tied up with Gideon for her. The lobotomy has, like, when she meets Cam, her nose starts bleeding. Like, the lobotomy's kicking in, and I think I don't know what's more reasonable. I don't know if it's that they're so tied up with Gideon, because, you know, she's obviously hung out with Pal without Gideon. Like, they know each other well enough by the time that Gideon sees them together in Canaan House that, like, they've got their whole own rapport going on. Or if it's just that the whole Gideon being her first friend is that Cam and Pal are also her friends, and there's this kind of like in there that she can't remember, or just that they talked about Lictorhood enough that if she remembers them, she'll also remember that they wouldn't have done it that way, and so she'll have to be like, well, why did I do it that way? And then the whole thing comes tumbling down. Anyway, this is not actually relevant to Rose's point, and I think one of the things you're asking that, like, brought up for me, I don't know, because I don't think we ever see it, whether Harrow consciously remembering Canaan House looks different to what we see when she's unconscious and she's actually in the play, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I don't think we ever, I think she might mention it in passing, but I don't think we ever get enough of it to be like, to tell if it's different. It's got to diverge
at some point, hasn't it, right? Because what happens in the play, the ending, and all the stuff about the sleeper just wouldn't make any sense. So she has to have a third version of the Canaan House story that we never actually see, that is her Gideon-less, but closer to the actual Gideon book, theoretically, right?
Like,
or like maybe it's just never actually. Like, maybe it's another thing where if she thought too hard about it, it would all start crumbling apart.
That's true.
Maybe she actually can't, because as part of the lobotomy, she can't actually touch any of Canaan House because Gideon's so entrenched in there that it's all gone unless she's unconscious and actually, acting in the play, so to speak. But the whole book's kind of a play in a sense, isn't it? Because it's all in, I mean, it's in acts, first of all, which I don't think Gideon is in. And then there's also the sections that are, parados and epiparados, which are like specifically Greek tragedy things.
So this is a thing that I think you don't get in the audiobook, or I missed in the audiobook.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a prologue, and then there's Parados, which is the first song that the chorus sings in a Greek tragedy, apparently, which is the kind of like, it's set up and world building kind of stuff, it seems to be, and in the main. And that's the first chapter where we get Harrow talking to Ortis about going to Canaan House. It's in the myriad year of our Lord, the kindly Prince of Death.
And that's her being like, I'm insane.
Yes. Yeah, it's the I'm insane chapter, you need to help me hide it. And then Epiparados is like the chorus comes back, which seems to be like not a standard part of a Greek tragedy. But that is, I think, between Act 4 and Act 5. And it's Harrow Prime talking, like setting up the lobotomy with Yanthe.
Okay.
Which is again, I mean, it's giving you information that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have from like the perspective of somebody who's not in the play anymore, I guess, or not an actor in the play in the same way. Also featuring one of my favorite Harrow Pal relationship lines, which is the "You are not so worthy of that brain as to wipe its remnants off the wall," which delicious. Love that. Could talk about that forever. But yeah, the whole thing being a Greek tragedy, I think, is really interesting, and I wish I knew more about Greek tragedy so I could be like, oh yeah, I can see this really clever thing is happening here, but I do not. The only other thing that brings up for me is the like, I love that she and Ortis are both like, our brains are so about these like very long dead, extra dramatic literary forms, you know? He's all over the epic poetry, and she's like, I have restructured the entirety of my memory of one of the most defining, like, things in my life into, Greek tragedy. Interesting. It's cool. Drama kids. Goth drama kids. A lot of them. Yeah, no, I don't have any more, like, deep thoughts about it being a play, except that I think it's interesting that both the bubble and the outside the bubble are presented in those terms.
Okay, so here's a thought I had that's kind of related to this, which is I feel like the way that Harrow is similar to Jod is the need for control and the need to slightly kind of puppet and sort of stage manage everything around them, which is kind of both in the literal, like, pulling everyone into the bubble and in the act of refusing to accept Gideon's sacrifice and saying, no, I decide on what sort of the terms of this are and how it happens, and then contrasting that with Jod's kind of arranging all of his lictors to be the people that he wants them to be, and to sort of stage manage them, and to insist that they are like that, even when, like you're talking with about with Mithraeum, like to just not accept them not being his idea of who they are.
I mean, the houses...
Which is a very sort of emotionally neglectful to the point of abusive parent thing to do as well. Of, I have this idea in my head of who you are, and if you aren't that person, you're going to have a bad time.
Which is particularly interesting with that character being Mithraeum, who is like of the houses, so is very much like the first, like, I think they say she's like the third generation, but like it is, if like, you know, a descendant more than the other lictors are. Like, she is very much someone they would have seen as kind of like a child.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'm thinking about it in terms of like what we know about Harrow's relationship to the Ninth as well, in terms of, so she's been puppeting her parents, so there's some like fairly central people literal, in her life, very literally puppeting them. But also she has been in charge of everybody else for a very long time. And
so she was like 10.
Yeah, and it's really clear from like some of the way she talks about kind of living in the Ninth and growing up on the Ninth, that there's always been a distance between her and all of the people that look up to her and revere her and that she's responsible for. So you can kind of understand how there's this like disconnect between, you know, the kind of people as other people with autonomy versus But I think Gideon's kind of an interesting one there, because I think it is both a mix of the not wanting to give up control, and not giving up control would mean accepting responsibility for Gideon being dead and that she can't do anything about it. But also I think it's fundamentally just she doesn't accept Gideon's sacrifice because she doesn't want her best friend to be dead. You know, which is like they play with each other in interesting ways, but I think it's more complicated than it just being a manifestation of her control issues. Even though Gideon is very like Gideon very much sees it that way. which is another speech of hers that makes me want to like chew drywall.
Rip
honestly.
my hair out. Yeah.
No, it's very much just one facet of that, along with the massive trauma of I already have like 200 corpses on my conscience from the moment I was born. Therefore I will not accept another one under any circumstances, which is like, So there's definitely more going on. Yeah.
And it's a particular kind of death as well, isn't it? Because it's not the being eaten thing. It's like it's a more permanent death than whatever goes on in the river, isn't it? Like it's a different, like going into the stoma, or like it's a more
complete annihilation.
Yes, that's the exact phrase. Yeah.
And like specifically also it's a death that happened so that Harrow's necromancy could be more powerful.
That is true.
Like not just for her as a person, but like through the and Gideon is dying for her as a person so that she can live.
Yeah.
But the conduit through which that happens is her necromantic power, which sucks because 200 corpses, under that.
Now 201. Yeah. Which I think that's the other place where we see her diverge again from God, because when God finds out about that, he's like, wow, that's like some really cool necromancy. And Harrow's like, I have just told you that I am the result of genocide.
Yeah.
And he's like, no one has the right to blame you for that, which is very much him not talking to her.
Yeah.
Because he's a piece of shit. Woof. But
which I think comes down to the difference, right? Is that Harrow.
It's like, what do I owe those children?
Yes,
I owe the continuance of their house, the renewal of their house.
To a slightly like maladaptive response, because she is not the one who killed those children, but to the same way of like, therefore having.
But she is a legacy.
Yes.
Yeah. It's though trying to make it be worth something, or not to throw it away in a way that suggests you don't respect the enormity of what that was.
Like what they have each done with their self-hatred is different.
Yeah.
Because I do think Jod hates himself.
Oh yeah.
Even if he doesn't quite understand why, maybe.
This kind of trickles into like, I'm thinking about God and truth, which is another thing that kind of I don't know, I found the contrast between him at the end of the book when the other lictors are kind of ganging up on him, like, so what did happen? What really is the deal with Alecto? And
he's like, does it matter?
Yeah, and he's like, does it matter? And it very obviously does, otherwise they would not be having this extremely fraught conversation. But the contrast between that and like Dulcinea saying, Pal and I were always heretics, in the sense that we wanted the unvarnished truth. The sixth for the truth over solace in lies. And Harrow being kind of included in that is... Yeah, I don't know. It's juicy. I enjoyed that kind of thread of... And like Harrow as well, like not knowing what's true. And having to rely on other people sometimes for her like perception of reality. And in the end, she's...
Yancy just being like, no, I'm going to lie to you for shits and giggles.
Yeah. And like... Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure somebody with a literary criticism background would have deep thoughts to say about this. I'm just sitting here going, it's very interesting. It's interesting that everybody in this book that I respect is more interested in the truth than in being comfortable. And everybody that I hate is very much like, the truth is whatever I say it is.
Well, this book is kind of, looked at from an eagle-eyed view, is very much a Harrow who has been stripped of knowledge, now having to make a choice between, and has this lack of ability to completely trust the reality around her, having to make a choice between these two groups of people. And like you say, they can very much be split in along those lines of here is the unvarnished truth and here is the lie that will make things go smoothly. And
I think Abigail and, like, to a lesser degree Magnus are also on that, like, no, we want to know what the truth is. Like Abigail particularly, like, as an academic who's like, she's a fine necromancer, but her real strength is in like knowledge, seeking knowledge.
Well, her the way she talks about investigating the river almost seems to me like it sort of hints at the fact that maybe knowledge has been specifically suppressed in the houses.
Yes.
Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
And this is one of the reasons I think that the sixth house is going to be like such a huge part of the rest of the series. In Electo, because not stuff happens in Nona, but like there's the sixth house and the ninth house being having duties that are not just about the emperor.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because the sixth house, I guess, is the emperor's reason, I think. But like you start to think too critically about stuff, maybe you will stop being loyal. Like they have something to be loyal to that is not actually equivalent to Jod.
Yeah.
And then the ninth house, same with the lot team. But yeah.
Yeah. And do you think Abigail's attitude towards the river is like, she never calls it heresy. I don't think she necessarily really sees it or presents it ever as an act of defiance. But she does say that like, she suspects that what we know about the river has been, like, suppressed in some way. But she then follows it up with she wanted to present God with her findings. So she clearly
doesn't think
see
it goes all the way to the top.
Yeah, she either doesn't see it as contradictory to her loyalty to God, or she also secretly wanted to kill God this whole time. Bringing the numbers up.
Does she explicitly say it was suppressed, or that it was based on like bad foundations or something, or that they were missing something?
I'm actually not sure. I think she might have said that it stagnated, maybe, or that there were whole avenues of scholarship that hadn't been followed due to orthodoxy or something along those lines. Yeah, it might not. She might not have implied such an active suppression.
That's my memory. It's more like it stagnated, and then my interpretation from that was maybe some sort of slight hand of God.
But also this is kind of bringing in some stuff from As Yet Unsent, but Yanthi and Corona specifically having also suspecting that something is not right with the Empire. Because in As Yet Unsent, Corona talks about, like, how she got interested in finance and she got interested in the economics of how the houses, and particularly their, like, expansion works. And I don't know, there's some, like, and she says that Yanthi encouraged her in that. So you get this kind of sense of, like, and I think we can kind of tell from the confrontation with Augustine that, like, it's to do with he's chasing somebody that he wants to get revenge on that Augustine doesn't think he's ever going to find, and that he should give it up. And that's what the expansion is about. But it's clear that, like, the third house also has not just gone, I'm accepting uncritically God's agenda with regard to the expansion of the houses, right? They've also gone, hey, something's not right here. I'm a poke at it, you know?
Yeah.
So we're gathering up people, like, you know, all the heirs of the houses. Most of the heirs of the houses.
They're all starting to, like,
something's
pull at
wrong
the threads.
Here. Yeah. And I mean, it goes back a little to the fact that, like, absolutely none of them would have, apart from Yanthi, would have taken lictorhood. Like, nobody at Canaan House would have voluntarily done that. Like, 2 and 8 both kind of explicitly said this is heresy. 4 and 5 just loved each other too much. 6, ditto. And also 6th and 9th, I think, also had a bit of a, we could do this better, though. This is bad. This is bad. Yeah. This is shoddy scholarship, and I don't approve. I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's very satisfying to me that all of these people that are supposedly, you know, stuck in this cult and supposed to revere God above all else and, like, you know, obeying his every whim, everybody's like, something's not right here. Even the people that don't immediately jump to we should kill God are like, something's fucked in the state of Denmark, actually.
Thinking about, like, nobody in Canaan House would have done, like, taken lictorhood. I want to see what actually happened 10,000 years ago with all the lictors. You know, apart from, like, Cytherea. I don't know if that's something that Tamsyn Muir actually would write, or if it's, like, cooler to leave it unwritten. But I want to know, like, you know, what did people think they were doing? What, you know...
I mean, I have no doubt that she knows exactly what happened, what we're going to see.
But whether we get it is... I suspect if we're going to get...
exactly, Is it just going to be told through, like, negative space and hints and
but also this is the thing I find it difficult to talk about without talking about Nona stuff.
For sure.
No, that's fair. I was going to say, like, I feel like we might get what happened to Anastasia, but I only think that because of Nona. So
because we definitely had some hints about what happened to Anastasia.
Yeah.
But I can't remember if it's in this or Nona, so I'm going to stop talking.
Yeah, I think it's all in Nona.
I think they do talk about some of it in this one, because I can't remember. It comes up in the final confrontation.
They definitely mention Anastasia a few times.
And it's in the context of, hey, there is a perfect lictorhood. And they're like, so what really happened to Anastasia? Did she actually work out what it was?
And I think in Harrow it's confirmed that she died back in Canaan House because she never uses the rooms. That's definitely confirmed.
Yeah,
because there's a whole bit about Harrow having brand new things, even if they're 10,000 year old, and being like, "Oh, this is lovely."
Either she died in Canaan House, or what we know about that is she never went to the Mithraeum, right?
Yes,
that's not the same as she died in Canaan House.
I can't remember if they say it is in this. I don't know. They definitely give you some context about when they first set up the Mithraeum, which I think might imply
because the thing about Anastasia is that she founded the Ninth, right?
No,
she's the founder of the Ninth House. No.
Yeah. No, I think she is.
The Anastasian, where the hero's bones get to rest forever.
Yeah, it's the Anastasian.
But that doesn't necessarily have to. She doesn't necessarily have to be alive for that to be set up.
No, that's true.
But I also think you might be right in that she might have set up the Ninth. So I might have the.
I think
I don't think we have enough information.
Yeah.
I think she actually did end up on Pluto to do some stuff, but I don't know if that's. I'm assuming that or not, or if that's something that we find it something that I'm basing that off knowledge from Nona.
Having come back to thinking about the Ninth House, something I was thinking about from last time that I didn't ask you guys about. I'm thinking about parents and surrogate parents on the Ninth, because we already know that Gideon didn't have any parents, but Iglemony was kind of, the closest thing she had.
Yeah.
Harrow's been puppeting her parents since she was 10, but she had Crux.
And then the nearest thing she has is Crux,
Yeah.
They both have one mentor as it is, and that's it.
Yeah. But we also kind of get that hint with Ortus as well, because Harrow asks him about his father at one point, and he says, sometimes I dream he's alive, and then when I wake up, it's a relief to know that he's dead. It's said really starkly in a way that really struck me, and that was what I just said was absolutely not the exact. But he had his mum, and we know that his mum adored him, even if she wasn't, necessarily a good parent in any other way. But yeah, I found that really interesting, and also that Crux was awful to Gideon and killed Ortus, but was the only thing that Harrow had. And
I think Ortus also describes him as a terrible person. We initially get Crux through Gideon's point of view, so you're like, well, maybe he's not as bad as she's making out. And then Ortus, I think in this, is also he was a horrible person.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, so he was just terrible.
But
which is then confirmed by the bomb.
Yes. But there's a lot of parents and surrogate parents in this book, and I think the contrast between Ortus and between the Fifth and Jod, thinking about Harrow in a parental way, is very interesting.
It's kind of looping back to Gideon. It's the Fifth partially because of that parental responsibility to everyone involved are part of, and partially because of Abigail's specific power set, are the first ones that need to go. But then in this one, they do get to take the reins, and you do get to see them organizing everyone and trying to.
You get to see why, why they had to be killed off so fast the first time around.
But and also looping back to the truth and lies thing again, because Jod lies to Harrow all the goddamn time.
I mean, one of the first things he says to her is, "No, I can't bring Gideon back."
Which,
absolutely he could.
Yeah, 100%. And then you get, thinking about, again, the truth unvarnished, even when it hurts. Magnus telling Harrow that Gideon isn't coming back.
Yeah.
Is very much presented as,
I saved that dance card forever.
Yeah.
Right? And then Harrow going, no, who could save the last dance?
Yeah.
And it's she hasn't, because she doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But, he is doing his best to be gentle while also telling her something really difficult.
And with the knowledge he has, be like that being the truth. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Because obviously then we have Dulcie being like, well, I have another uncomfortable truth for you. And that is a different uncomfortable truth that, you know. But that's another one, actually, that we get a glimpse of, like, different parenting. Because she talks about hanging out with Pro and his kids. And that seems almost idyllic, doesn't it?
I'm just thinking about how it's like, you know, that thing in Gideon where Gideon is like, oh, this was just like the latest in a small like line of tragedies, and she had to like lie down face down on the floor. And it's hearing about like Palamedes never getting to, like, you know, having been in love with Dulcinea since he was, you know, 8 or whatever. But how good Magnus and Abigail are at parenting and like the kindness that they show to everybody, and that along with they wanted kids and couldn't have them. It's just like, just a tiny little detail, and it's, you know, it's sad, and it's also sad because that's the reality for like many people in the real world. But yeah, I'm
glad we got real Dulcie in this. I enjoyed her immensely.
Oh my god,
sick of roses and horny for revenge. Yeah. Also the fact that Ortis hates Pro so much. And Harrow's just like, she thought it was nice he had a hobby. I'm just like,
Yes, Harrow's like a good hobby, a hatred, just a personal hatred to hold on to. I mean, that's how Harrow survived, you know?
Yeah.
Protesilaus is like a warrior poet, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know? So it's like...
He's both everything Ortis wanted to be and everything Ortis was being told he should be, and he's doing them both perfectly.
Yeah. Oh, but it wasn't his poetry that brought back Matthias Nonius and saved them all from the sleeper and nearly defeated a resurrection beast, now was it?
So that's an interesting thing. So we were, Em and I were talking about like the timeline of the bubble in the river that Harrow has like pulled all these ghosts into, and who can be brought into it, because all of these characters died before the bubble was created, right? But they hadn't, you know, moved on or whatever. And clearly Matthias Nonius, who died yonks ago, also is able to be summoned back. But we think that maybe people like Augustine wouldn't have been able to be, right? So anyone who's got, you know, so there's dead and there's dead, and then what are the kinds of dead, and is this tied into there's something wrong with the river? Because surely Matthias Nonius should be long gone by now.
Yeah.
So
and it was really him.
I guess, like, should be, and so seems like he isn't, to me implies that no one else is, and that the river is full of bodies.
It's like the Good Place thing where, like, nobody's getting into heaven.
Yeah.
And then I think who was actually brought in is more to do with various wibbly connection values to Harrow, mostly.
No,
right?
absolutely. But, like, you know, could she, like, you know, they managed to bring back somebody who's been dead for so long and is like none of them even knew him in person, and they basically it's the fact that he was still kicking around is interesting. And I think my theory is that it's like a Good Place thing where you know the system's clogged somehow.
I think the fact that the river has always seemed to be polluted by bodies, just rather than just neutrally having bodies in it. Something's definitely like. I think you're right. I think they're not.
In all representations of rivers in like stories of death, like you cross the river to get to the land of the dead. It's not a.
And Abigail says that she sent the teens onwards, but then there's also the bit later when Harrow starts going into like funny AUs where
she pulls them back in.
The barista one, So whatever Abigail wasn't permanent.
I think that ties in with what Abigail's saying about they just don't properly understand the river. And what we're seeing is, to a certain extent, filtered through the character's own ideas of how it should work. And therefore, the limitations of it as they actually exist aren't maybe actually understandable to us at this point, because we have a warped version of what it should be.
I'd say the thing it's most similar to, thinking about other rivers of death, to me, is actually the Old Kingdom river. Because that also has... I mean, it's got its... You know, I think I tend to think of it more as being defined by the gates and the precincts and the spells and things. But it is also full of the dead, what want to get you, which is, it's not a safe or peaceful place.
Yeah.
But it is implied to be, well, I don't know, do we think the river in Death in the Old Kingdom is natural? Because it's got 9 precincts and there were 9 shiners. And gates have to be built. Like, gates are built things.
Yes, but that's kind of...
Is it like structure that they imposed upon an existing thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's also what I think, is that you have, as it were, a natural river that I guess you are flowing with instead of across. And then you're putting artificial sort of barriers on it, and that feels like the shape of it to me.
Or were there 9 shiners because there were 9 precincts of death? And maybe they put the gates up because each of the precincts has their own character, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, I don't know how much you would. Yeah, I don't know if that's something that.
But
they
how much are those influenced
occurring.
or matched up and then amplified
chicken
by the
versus
thing?
egg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I think I don't know whether it's if Tamsyn Muir was influenced by that, or if there's a shared underlying Death River myth that we're missing that might have.
I think it's
I don't think any of us know about New Zealand folk tales very much. So
or Australian either. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting consonance, and once again brings forth my desire to have lots and lots of fanfic in which necromancers from either universe end up in the other one and are like, what the fuck is going on?
I do think there's something about like you can never step in the same river twice that I think like lends itself to be a metaphor for death or something that's constant but ever changing,
but does also kind of lead into the idea to me that this river is wrong in some way, because John's whole thing is, no, I will hold everything and I'll keep it the way that I want it to be. And,
something about like we were talking about when we this with the Great Gatsby thing of like you can't undo the past, like you can't relive the past. And him going, oh, of course you can. And I do think that Jod has that energy.
Yeah, he's got a golden age in his brain.
He'll keep the bird trapped in its gilded cage until it dies of not being able to fly anywhere. Sort of thing.
And then he'll bring it back because fuck that bird. Am I right?
Yeah.
I was gonna. Before we totally run out of time, I was gonna ask you guys for your like 6 impressions, because I feel like I love the 6, and I feel like both of these times we've mentioned them in passing and not like dwelt on them at all.
So my thought is obviously we need to have a way for kids, or like for let's say adults of our age to like self-identify themselves with one of a set of sort of institutions and say anyway, I would be in the 6th house if I was in this world. I think that's the house I'd want to be part of.
I don't know,
but I think that's the Lyrial influence again, because it's like hello, it's a whole planet of librarians. I'm like, yes
right.
Please.
Well, they're not even a planet. They're just like a satellite of librarians. Like, I think I don't know if that's confirmed at this point, but it's not a massive spoiler. They're like the 6th installation is not planet side. It's
they are a free. They have freedom of movement, sort of, relative to the planet.
I just think I couldn't live that close to the sun. I would die.
That's fair. That's there's some scary shit right there. Don't like that. Also, we got so much good like Cam and Pal, and also Pal and Harrow in this book for like Cam and Pal are there for like 1 chapter max, and it was just.
I think I love them both. They're both great and fun. They're really interesting stuff to dig into. Comes in the next book.
That's fair.
To lightly spoil. So again, it's a thing where like I would like to talk about them, but how much I would just be holding myself back from talking about Nona stuff. I
think the main 2 things I took away from this are we had some great Camilla Hecht one-liners, both real and imagined, because I think there's a point during the Matthias Nonius duel where Harrow says that describes it as like them having done a move that would make even Camilla Hecht break out with a wild okay. which just exquisite. And Harrow being like, I saw your body, and Cam being like, well, don't tell everyone, or they'll want to see too. Incredible. But also just like how much how much Pal loves Harrow. Actually, like, because he's in it for like 2 seconds, but you just get this really strong sense of like how important she is to him and how much he loves and respects her.
How he's worried for her.
Yeah, yeah. In a very different way to like, every other lictor on the Mithraeum has basically decided that the kindest thing to do is to put her down like a like an animal, and
like a kitten that's failing to thrive.
And Pal's just like,
just believe
there she
in her.
is. My favourite tiny nunlet. Of course I'm going to hug her as soon as I see her. What you on? It's good. I love him. He's a good boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm rereading Nona right now, and it's just like my heart.
Yeah.
And like, again, not to like explicitly spoil, but because I have read Nona before and I know some of the stuff that happens in Nona, it's just like I want to just live in the middle of this book, basically.
Yeah. Well, I think we did mansplain, manipulate, male wife last time.
Yeah.
I had a kind of flipped question for you, because in previous episodes we have sometimes asked, would a necromancer help? So here I would like to ask you guys, would a detective help? If we could put another fictional detective on the Mithraeum.
It depends. Are they like invulnerable to harm? Because like Benoit Blanc is becoming Chunky Marinara immediately if you put him in it.
Yeah, but also I want to see him on the Mithraeum. Oh my god. Like, it's exactly his kind of vibe as well.
Yeah.
It's like, look at these ridiculously privileged people who have all of their messy personal drama that I must dig into. But also his whole thing is being like, oh no, you want me here. I'm like, like, especially in the second one, it's like, oh no, you invite me and I'm here for your own whims, and then I will destroy you from the inside. So he can maybe survive.
Also, I love that my brain defaults to Benoit Blanc when you say, which detective do you want?
I feel like
Sherlock who,
Yeah. I feel like Cordelia Cupp from The Residence would also have a good time on there. Because again, she's like, hello, I'm stuck in I have walked into a situation where like the leader of the not so free world this is his house, and I'm solving problems in his house. Not necessarily in the way that he would want me to, but that we just... I
saw a gift set from that, which I haven't seen it, but like the gift set I saw is somebody saying to Cordelia, like, oh, have you ever been married? Like, are you married? No. Have you ever been married? No. You don't seem like someone who would enjoy it. I mean that as a compliment.
Oh,
she's like, thank you. That's how I took it.
Yeah. And she's like, thank you. That's like, how I took it. Yeah.
Like that is doing more to make me want to watch that show than many other any other advert, I think.
But there's another one that you've seen that I think you'd probably enjoy on that basis. That's like, I think one of the people she's interviewing is talking about having run off to have a one night stand, and is like, you know how sometimes you just really need to have sex? Sex, right? And Cordelia's like, I define that as
I'm aware.
Yeah, it's something like define sex, and she's like, I define it as the thing that I enjoy more than doing my taxes, but less than looking at birds. Which I was just like,
love
excellent.
It.
Yes.
A vibe, yeah.
Yeah. But you're right, it is exactly Benoit Blanc's whole deal, is the and like Harrow coming from somewhere where like, this is like the Mithraeum is unbelievable decadence to her. Her house has been starving and dying her entire life. And these people are just like, oh yeah, we don't even bother to learn to cook all of these fancy ingredients we've had perfectly preserved properly. It's just irrelevant to us. We have all this abundance and it doesn't matter. It's just...
I do think also Benoit Blanc adopting Harrow, like in the way that he does with the character in the first, with Marta in the first one. Like, she would not know how... She's badly in need of it, and she would not know what to do with it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It would probably make me cry. In
absolutely.
I think Poirot, and to maybe a certain extent Miss Marple, would also do it, because I think Agatha Christie also very much goes in for that kind of I'm very harmless, let me read the social...
The interpersonal stuff.
I
Whereas
feel
Sherlock
like,
Holmes is a lot more mechanical, I feel.
And I feel like would be a little bit out of his depth in this kind of intrigue.
Yeah.
Where there's not that much he'd be great at Canaan House. He's not great
Yes.
on Mithraeum.
yeah.
I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
You want
So I'm
Sherlock
with you on
Holmes
that.
at Canaan House, yeah.
But I think we do have to put the caveat in here that it has to be an indestructible detective. A detective would absolutely help, but only if you made them impervious to lictors.
Well,
Exactly.
Sherlock comes with a Watson who has a gun, which canonically can work in this world against lictors.
That's true. That's true. Oh man, Watson and Wake team up.
Yeah.
Oh. I'm almost afraid to ask who would we fight, in that I think I'm worried that all of our answers would be God.
I mean, it's kind of the only one.
I like everybody else too much.
Because it kind of has to be Jod, right? But at the same time, you will die
Yes.
instantly.
Yeah.
Mercy Morn, also, you will die instantly. This is the problem. Do I get to, like, be a lictor? Or the answer to all of these is it's a very
Yeah, do
bad
I have the
idea.
same indestructibility that we've bestowed on Benoit Blanc for the purpose of these hypotheticals?
Like, if I'm in this world, I would feel like I would end. If I were in this world in a lictor, I feel like then Mercy Morn and I would have been doing Toxic Yuri for like 10,000 years. So
And that would fix her.
Well, it might not fix her, but it might be one more person, like somebody else to help try and coordinate the killing God plan.
Yes.
I'm not saying I could rewrite this book and I could save this, but maybe I could save this. You know? But I wouldn't be fighting Mercy Morn. I would be trying to join her to fight God, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. Right.
Are we going to give this a cat rating?
I think we have to.
I think we should, yeah.
I think we're obliged.
There are no actual cats.
Harrow comes very
is-
close.
She does. She does.
The imperturbable sense of own dignity, even while surrounded by
Yes.
vomit, is very cat behaviour.
Yeah.
Yes, I will not disagree.
Yeah.
And we gave Temeraire a 10 based on Temeraire being a cat.
That's true.
So
I would
There's a
say
lot of
Tamara is a
stabbing.
bit more of a cat than Harrow is a
than
cat.
Harrow is.
That's fair. There is a lot of
There is
stabbing.
absolutely
There's
there's
a lot of
backstabbing,
stabbing.
there's crime, there's sneaking around in the dark, there's lying, there's what else is there?
There's disemboweling your enemies.
There's killing things that only you can see.
Yeah. There's drama.
Lots of ghosts.
Yeah, I feel like
Lots of seeing ghosts, yeah.
a 9.
Yeah,
honestly.
I'm leaning towards a 9. Oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
That's gonna be one of the highest we've had for a while, right?
I worry that our love of the book is pulling it up a little bit. Are there
Well, I mean,
would you
it's
say there are
hitting
hijinks? How many hijinks are in this?
The thing is,
Like-
this book is
I do
very
feel like
funny.
Gideon Prime trying to kill Harrow is hijinks. Actually.
Yeah, it's very Looney Tunes. It's very Tom and Jerry. Like, the cat's
Okay.
whole purpose is killing, and yet it can't get this one mouse. What's the deal with that?
I will give you that, and I will bump up from an 8 to a 9. We can
Also,
settle
yeah,
on
And
a
like-
9.
I feel like the rapid fire AUs are also hijinks.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
And I think the thing is, it feels more hijinksy than it is because it is so hysterically funny. Even though,
Yes,
like,
that is true.
the actual plot is not at all funny, and there's a lot of really awful stuff going on basically all the time. Sometimes you get the,
Yeah.
I admit, my bad, it was not my thumb to let them bite off. I'm sorry.
Okay.
They had a hunger for thumbs.
I did read. I was like browsing the TV tropes just before we started, and it was very much like this is a bummer ending. Like, it's written in such a way that you don't realize until you actually think about it how much of a bummer ending this book has.
Yeah.
Like, everything's
sure.
gone wrong. Like, yeah.
And like most of the people you started the book with, or that you spent most of the book with, are gone by the end of
Yeah.
it, or at least we
One
don't
way or
know what's
another,
happened
you
to
know?
them.
Yeah.
Like, Mercy Morn's chunky marinara.
Yeah.
Like
Harrow is God
Augustine's,
knows where.
Yeah,
Like probably a river bubble, but we don't really know.
yeah. She's in a coffin with a titty mag. Yeah.
She's somewhere that is experientially to her very much like the Locked Tomb, but there's a frontline titties of the 5th magazine there, which A, isn't real, and B, couldn't have got there even if it were.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I saw an interview with Tamsyn Muir that said they asked her about the, like, all of the erotica and like the in-world erotica, and she said she couldn't tell them because it would be a spoiler. So I think the frontline titties of the fifth is plot relevant.
Exquisite.
Okay.
Wow, I can't wait for Electo. We should wrap it up.
Yes, we should. So we're settling on a 9.
Yes.
Yes.
It might be a generous 9, but...
It might be a generous 9.
Listen, it's our podcast and we'll give things 9s if we want to.
Yes. All right. Next time. What are we doing next time?
Murder at the Vicarage.
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
That is an Agatha Christie, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. It's the first Miss Marple. It's very exciting.
Gotcha. I'm up to date. I can be trusted to read things on time.
I just finished it today, actually, so...
Thank you all so much for listening. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, drop us an email. Link to that is on all of our socials. Follow us on our socials. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye!